Hey you guys, going to do a little screencast here for you that will be meant to help you put your graphs together, manipulate the data, run some stats, and so on. Hopefully this will save us some class time. I'm going to do my best to do this quite quickly with you. Keep this nice and short. The idea being that you can pause it to look for what you need to find on Excel if you need to. First, a disclaimer, your version of Excel, my version of Excel, there's always going to be headaches, but you'll have to just fish around a little bit on your version of Excel, and hopefully it's similar enough that you can, like I say, fish around and find what you need to find. You'll recognize the data that we collected today in class. We're going to set up this little side table over here. We're going to build the graph from that table. The graph is going to look like this. So that's going to be our final product. I think I'll probably print this for you and give you a copy of it to work from in class. But I do want you to build your own on Excel. And good. So I've got another sheet over here where, yeah, I can just start from scratch. So you'll remember calculating the mean of each of these. We're going to hit equals, average, bam, highlight, enter. For standard deviation equals ST DEV, there it is. Again, click and drag along our data points and hit enter. For confidence.norm, it's equals, what is it again? Confidence? Yeah, confidence.norm. Sorry about that. The alpha, you'll remember, is 0.05. That'll set up a 95% confidence interval. Now, see that? We want the alpha, we want a comma, we want the standard deviation, and the standard deviation is right here in cell B. Okay, so B9. I'm going to click on that. Gives us B9. Again, we need a comma, and then the size, and that's the sample size, and our sample size is 5. So there's a 5. Enter. There is our 95% confidence interval. I'm going to highlight those three statistics. I'm going to hover to grab a hold of that autofill. When I have the black plus sign, I'm in the right spot. Click and drag to here, and you can see that Excel is smart enough. Oh, in this cell it wants the mean of C3 to C7. So these numbers, that's the mean. And we want the standard deviation of these numbers, and we want the 95% confidence interval on these numbers. And so we have our stats. I'm just going to look at the other set. So it's the same. We know we're the same. Good. So we have everything that we need. The purpose here, by the way, like I'm not necessarily putting together a data table to be ready to hand in. We're just getting the numbers that we need to produce the graph. So this isn't necessarily a hand-in ready data table. We'll make this lab more about the graph. Now, I'm going to set up a simple XY graph over here. So on our graph, we want the independent variable, the x-axis is concentration of saline solution. The units are molarity, so from 0 to 1. And on our y-axis, the dependent variable is percentage change in mass of potato cubes as a percentage. So we have to have just our x values and just our y values in a nice, neat little table, little side table here. So for the molarity, I think I'll just type it in 0, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, 1.0. So there's that. For the mean percentage change in mass, so this is our mean percentage change mass at the 0 molar solution. So what I'm going to do, rather than typing that number in, I could make a mistake, or that number might change, or who knows what. I'm going to go equals, I'm going to click on the cell, bam, hit enter. Okay. Now if I decide, oh yeah, I made some change, this is not 8.06, it's 9.06. If I change that to a 9.06, it's going to change the average here, and it's going to change the average here. That's the benefit to doing it this way. Equals, equals this sign, or that cell. Good. Equals this cell, enter. Equals this cell, enter. Equals this cell, enter. Equals this cell, enter. Again, if I'm going too fast, pause, rewind, see it again. So we are going to use this data to plot our graph. Okay, and if I click back, so I've got everything set. Okay, now to plot the, or to make the graph, we're going to highlight our x's and our y's. Now you're going to have to forgive me because they changed my computer. I got a new computer last May, so I have a new version of Excel, so I'm not quite as handy with this version. But insert, no, not there. Insert here. So insert, like as in a chart, and this little picture shows me a scatter. See, that says, if I hover over it, it says XY scatter. That's a pie chart. That's a column, whatever. I find on your version of Excel, we want the XY scatter, and just this, the first one. There it is. That's a decent looking graph. We need to do a lot of work to it, but that's a decent looking graph. I'm just going to put it here so it's out of the way of all my numbers. Now we're going to need to do a few things to this graph. I'm going to click on any of the data points, and you can see how the data points got highlighted. And I need to remember how to add a line. Wait, I'm going to right click, format data series. That's what I did. So on a Mac, it's like the two-finger click. On a PC, it would be a right click, and you'd get this pop-up menu. So I'm going to hit format data series. And over here, this is, right, so here we go. So there's a line. So on your version of Excel, you got to find some kind of format data series and then an area where it allows you to treat a line. So solid line. Don't know why that came up as red. I don't really want it to be red, so it's blue. So there's the line, and I've got a line. It's not a linear trend line or anything like that. It's connecting the dots. Just connecting the dots simply like that. We'll talk about that in class. We'll talk about trend lines in class when you want to just connect the dots on this graph. I've got a little list of things we're doing to the graph. So line. So now I think I want to do error bars next. Okay, for our error bars, we're going to use our 95% confidence interval. Okay, not the standard deviation, although you could, but we're going to use the 95% confidence intervals as our custom error bars. So we will want a plus and a minus error bar on this point using this number. And we will want a plus and minus error bar on this point using this number. So again, every point has its own custom error bar. So to do that, I just clicked again on a single data point, and on your version of Excel, there's a button here that says Add Chart Element, and I'm going to go to error bars, and none of these are going to work for us. We need more error bar options. It's going to get scary when I click this. Yeah, it got scary. For some reason, it always puts in these horizontal error bars, and they're garbage. We're going to get rid of them. But deal with them, just live with them for a moment. We're dealing with vertical error bars, and so we want custom error bars, and we're going to specify value. This is very similar to what we did last year in grade 10, if you're with me in grade 10. And you just have to nose around, like to find this stuff, I think you have to nose around up here, format chart and stuff like that. Anyway, this will come up when you hit custom and specify value. And what you want to do for the positive error value, delete that one thinger and click on this funny little button here. And this, you're now in a mode where you can tell Excel where the data is that represents your error bars, and it's right here. So you're going to click and drag just that line, boom, and hit enter at that point. Okay, and same thing for the negative error bar. You have to highlight it, delete it to get rid of it, click the funny little button here, and then same thing, same set of numbers, click and drag and hit enter. Okay, and then hit OK, and we now have our vertical error bars. I'm going to click on these horizontal ones that are garbage, I hate them, and make them go away. Okay, just highlight them, hit delete, they go away. So we now have our beautiful error bars. And most of that, like, we're pretty well done the hard work. We got to just tidy this thing up a little bit, make it somewhat presentable. So error bars done. Axis numbers low. Okay, I don't love the way these numbers are in the middle of the chart. That's the x-axis where y equals 0. I'm going to leave the axis there, but I want these numbers down low, like this, right? Axis is here, but I want the numbers down low. So if you click on the axis, any of the numbers that are on the axis, numbers, not the place. Not that. Not that. Dang it, can't find it. Oh wait, axis options. Next to axis, low. There we go. Okay, so labels, label position, and then set it to low, like that. So again, the axis doesn't move, but the numbers do. Okay. While I'm formatting this axis, excuse me, I'm going to increase the weight of it to like 2 point. And so now my axis appears heavier, so that, you know, because it's not down here, it shows up nicely there. I'm going to do the same thing with the y-axis. I'm going to click on the axis, and I'm going to bring that up to a 2 point. Done. So we have our heavy axes. Now, as far as the range, so on the y-axis from 15 to minus 30% makes sense, because like you can see that our high value is 10%, and we need a little bit more y to cover the top end of that error bar. So I'm going to leave it at 15. Same thing on the low end, like on this point, you know, the minimum is here, but the as low as this graph gets is this error bar right here at 0.4. So we'll leave that be, but I don't necessarily love all this space over here. So I'm going to set the maximum on the x-axis to 1.1, but I'm going to keep my 0.2 interval. So axis options, number, axis options, right. So I'm going to set the max to 1.1, and I'm going to hit enter, maybe, or yeah. So right, I hit enter, but I don't love, see now we don't have our 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, which were our molar solutions. So I'm going to keep the minimum at 0. And hit enter. Yeah, good. So now our minimum is 0. Our maximum is actually 1.1, but it doesn't show the 0.1. It's just giving us an axis label every 0.2, which is good. It just gives us a little less empty space over here. Okay, now heavy axes, title. Okay, we can get into titles now. So this chart title, you don't need to watch me type on a screencast. Again, I will have this graph printed for you, and I probably should make you write your own title, but I'm using this as a teaching tool. Let's undo that. Before I put that title in there, I'm going to move this thing. So a right click on a PC or a 2-finger click on a Mac, and move chart to a new sheet. Call it chart 2, whatever you like. Okay, so it just gives us a bigger chart. Now, if I'm gonna actually just copy and paste this. Copy, Control C, Control A highlights it all, Control V gives me a paste. So there's my title. You guys can type that all in. So now we want to do axis titles. And let's see if I can remember where to find this. Oh yeah, add chart element right here. Axis title. Yeah, axis title. Primary vertical. There it is. Axis title. Primary horizontal. So now I'm going to go back to my model graph. And again, you guys can type all this in, but Control C, Control V. Okay. And back to the model for the x-axis title. Highlight it all, copy it, highlight it all, paste it. Good. Looking better all the time. So we have axis titles. And now all we have to do, I'm going to show you how to draw this red arrow and how to come out, this text box. So we're soon done. So, drawing. Sorry, I have to think. Format. There we go. So for me, it's under this chart area, chart formatting area. I get this insert shape bit, and if I click on it, I get an arrow. So I'm just going to use that tool, and I'm going to click and drag an arrow down to the x-axis, and I want it to be quite vertical, not on any kind of an angle, just straight up and down. Okay? It's highlighted. You could click on it to highlight it, but I can see that these circles tell me that it's highlighted. And I'm in a Format Shape menu over here. I'm going to change it to red. I'm going to bring up the width of that line to 2 point. And I guess I'll be happy with that. I thought I might have, did I do something to the head to make it better? I didn't. That's okay. Look at this, arrow size, end arrow size. I wonder what that is. If I do this, cool, okay. Bigger arrow. Now, a little trick. I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to zoom into this at 200%, just so that you see how it's not quite exactly where it should be. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to put it right there. Okay. And I'm going to, another little trick, I'm going to move it over like this and just look how vertical my line is, just judging it on the side of the computer screen. So that's good. Okay, back to 100% on the view. So there's my arrow. This is our x-intercept where the percentage change was 0%. That is our estimate of an isotonic solution. So it's right in here between 0 and 0.2. I don't love, see how that arrow isn't quite making contact with the x-axis. Just going to lengthen it a smidge. Yeah. There. Okay. Now, back to chart format, and under that same spot where I got the arrow, I've got a text box. I'm going to click on that text box, and I'm just going to click and drag to open up a text box like that. Okay. And again, like I could type this in for you, but I'm going to be lazy or smart, depending on your perspective. Control All, copy, and ooh, where to go? Dang it. Okay, I gotta put that in again. Shape. Boom. Here's my text box. Paste. Okay, good. Now, couple of things with that text box. Right now, there's no fill. I want the background to be white so that I don't see these grid lines behind it. So, solid fill, and it came up white. The first time I did that, it made it black, and I just had to change the color right here to white, because like black letters on black background won't work. I think I'd like the line to match the red arrow, so line, solid line, and then again I had to select red the first time I did this, but it's defaulting to red now that I've done that. So there it is. Now this text box is bigger than it needs to be, so let's do something like that. Let's just move it right here, and I'm just going to show you or tell you in class how I came up with 0.13, but I came up with 0.13. Like, you just got a ruler and measured distance. We'll go over that in class. But I want one more text box. If I go to the model, I'd like a text box right there, so you see, say 0.13. I think that makes sense. Easiest way in the world to do that is to copy this entire text box. Whoa, not that. This text box. Copy it. Okay, so I've highlighted the text box. Control C, Control V. So I have a second version of this text box. Okay. Get rid of estimation of solution. Make it a little smaller. Make it a lot smaller. Actually, get rid of the M. And make it even smaller, something like that. Then move it down here, and there it is. Oops, sorry. Okay, I think that's it. I think we have our graph. Hopefully you can pull this off. Make sure you save your work. All right, thanks for listening. I guess you're supposed to thank people for listening. Hopefully this worked out for you. See you soon. Bye.